Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, your host, an elementary principal in Texas, and each week I seek to bring you different guests from around the world who have inspired or encouraged me in one way or another with bits or pieces of their story. I am thrilled this week to have my special guest, Sunil Singh, on with me today. So, Sunil, why don't you tell everybody a little about who you are?
Sure. First of all, Todd, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to do this sort of face-to-face. Usually it's a podcast. You don't get to see the visual expression. So I'm really glad to do this sort of face-to-face kind of interview here. So a little bit about myself. So I just turned 55, which is the 10th triangular number. I like to mention math whenever I can. And then people can ask, well, what's a triangle number? I live up here in, Toronto, Canada, and I was a high school math and physics and occasionally English teacher for 19 years. And then I left. I quit teaching in 2013, and maybe we might get into that storyline a little bit as to why I quit. And then ever since then, I've had kind of a roller coaster of a life, and I've written 2 books, and I just recently did a TEDx talk, which I'm hoping will be uploaded soon. That's always a very exciting thing to be a part of. And just really just trying to share the joy and love of mathematics whenever you can. Not even just not formal situations, but just casually whenever, sometimes math is seen as too academic and too kind of success driven. And to have those conversations about math casually is very important to me.
I love that. So you said you were an educator for many years. Did you always know that you wanted to teach in some capacity?
Honestly, probably not. I took a degree in pharmacology. I took a science path like a lot of my friends, and it wasn't like, I loved sciences, but I loved history and mathematics much more. So I don't even know how I ended up in sciences, and I graduated with a degree then. But I did a lot of coaching of sports, in my 20s and 30s. And then I realized that, I do want to get into teaching, and not maybe for a specific subject, but just to be in that kind of milieu, that experience of sharing knowledge. And I loved always, working with kids. So that's when it sort of came more like post, studies in terms of university thinking, I think I want to become a teacher.
Yeah. Well, you were there for many years. So what do you think is the biggest thing you learned about yourself from being a teacher?
Whew. That's a good question. I think the biggest thing I learned, and this is, of course, you learn through time, is that, and I'm going to be almost quoting my favorite authors, unfortunately no longer with us, is Anthony Bourdain, is that, as you get older and as you experience more, you realize that you know less. And your wisdom is basically based upon this idea that, you're becoming more and more of a learner. It seems like a paradox, but it seems the more time you spend teaching, the more you realize how much you have to learn, not just about yourself, the world around you, your students, people who intersect your lives, and you become this sponge to become a better listener. So I think the transition in terms of what I learned over and I'm learning this, is that, I'm going to age wanting to learn more.
I love that. And I completely agree with you in all those aspects. So you mentioned that you actually left teaching at one point. What was the precipice that led to that?
Well, I'll be very frank, because I've been very frank wherever I've been asked this, and I talk about it, and it's indirectly mentioned in my TEDx talk. No one plans on quitting teaching when you love teaching. I didn't make a plan in 1994 to go, I think I'm going to get tired of teaching, quit in 2013. I just didn't like the way that I was more or less forced to teach mathematics. And, I left at the height of the, in terms of salary, all that. And, teachers up in here in Canada, we have taken care of very well in terms of the support, and to be compensated properly. So when people found out that I was leaving because I didn't like the way math was being taught, a lot of people thought I was having a midlife crisis. And so, but very few people understood that if you're not happy doing what you want to do, and I have a family, 2 young kids at a time, and to support. If you're not happy doing what you want to do, that's when you can get sick.
Right.
So in a very roundabout way, in my gut, I knew that if I wanted to stay healthy mentally, physically, and all that, I couldn't be in this environment the way it was. And it would be a tough thing to explain to people in terms of quitting and, you have responsibilities, but I have responsibility, yes, to myself first, to make sure if I'm happy, that means that people around me are going to be happy. So that was really why I quit, because I just thought I can't deal with teaching mathematics this way. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I definitely don't want to do this.
So looking back on that decision now, have there been moments since then where you've thought, did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing? Or has it been one of those things where you look back now and said, I did it when I needed to do it?
It's one of those things, and a lot of things which have happened since then. And the metaphor I use, because it'll help explain the answer, a lot of people like to think of like they're the driver in the car of their life. I like to think of myself as the passenger. So sometimes the car goes off the road. Sometimes you don't know where you are, you're lost, whatever kind of words you want to use. There's less stress that way. So I've always trusted that the universe is a GPS for me, that it's going to figure it out. And so I have no regrets whatsoever, because I would not have been inspired and lived and had experiences to write the 2 books that I did. If I would have stayed in the classroom, there's a different, I don't think I write 2 books. I don't think I, had the experiences I do and speak and travel all over North America. So it was one of those things which I, even though it was deep down inside me, I think the universe sort of poked me saying, I think you're going to do something else. It's going to be a rough ride, buckle up, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you alluded to it, but you just recently came out with a new book. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, the book is called Math Recess, Playful Learning in an Age of Disruption. And the actual title of the book I didn't come up with. And the title is something that was bestowed to me in a conversation with one of my great heroes, Paul Lockhart, and the story of how we met and how that title was given to me, sort of just, very sort of off the cuff. That's in the book itself, the introduction. But for me, as I'm getting, older and, unwiser, I really want to explore play-based learning in a deep sense, not just play as kindergarten, elementary kids do play, or maybe middle school. Yeah, well, I mean, play in a deep sense of how we learn, how we socialize, deep connections. So for me, mathematics is play. It's not like play is a subset of math. Every time you're doing math, it is play. And so that's where the impetus to write the book and to find my co-author, my good friend, Chris Barnell, we dove into this book, and that's how it came out.
Well, I love the title, and I love exactly the way you described it, because I was a math teacher the 7 years I was in the classroom. And it was so funny because I became a math teacher because in elementary and secondary school, I hated math. I was not great at it. It was something I struggled with. And so I wanted to be a math teacher so that I could help kids understand math and enjoy it when I didn't myself as a child. And so to hear you talk about how math is like play and things like that, I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I was doing with my kids all the time, and showing them that math was in everything, and it wasn't this terribly scary thing that people make it out to be and the TV shows and movies do, that it can be something that's fun and that that's a part of everything we do anyway. You just look at it differently. What would you say is your favorite part of your new book? I know, that's always the difficult.
I love your questions, because we didn't talk about these questions before. You didn't email me a set of questions. We had some 2-minute debriefing before going live, but I love that question. It makes me pause. I think the favorite part of our book is the last chapter, because it's called "Why Can't We Be Friends?" And it's intimated throughout the book, but then there's a whole chapter, the last chapter devoted to it, that for me and for Chris as well, and hopefully others who read the book, my purpose for learning mathematics is simply to make friends. Because the deeper the friendships you have, then there's a deeper bonds, and they can be anything. And, you know, like we have good friends over because we've shared, you know, watching sports or sharing meals or playing. They're deep bonds. Well, if you have deep bonds in mathematics, the way you think about it, the way you reflect about it, the ponder and all that kind of stuff, then I want that to be a vessel for friendship. So my end game is not about success or getting higher scores or getting kids into better jobs. All those things will come if the kindness and empathy and friendship is there, because we will support each other as we're learning mathematics.
I love that. And, you know, and you're in Canada, and you do speaking all over the place. So you speak in the United States, obviously. So what are you seeing are some of the big differences between the education system in Canada and the education system in the United States?
Well, for the longest time, Canada was a very progressive country with regards to math education. We've had kind of a turn to the back to basics, which I guess to some degree has happened in the United States in terms of misunderstanding of the Common Core. And I think that's been a miscommunication of what Common Core is. You know, you see all these sort of, you know, things on social media about why are we multiplying this way in the area model when we use, you know, the standard algorithm. Well, and again, these explanations are never given out properly. So, you know, back here in Canada, things are going kind of backwards in some of the provinces here. But I would tell you right now, even though there are pockets like that in the States, I think the most progression and the greatest math leaders, we have some amazing ones in Ontario, but there's so many great things happening in the United States. And the metaphor I like to use is, you know, before a new planet is born, you have this swirling gas phase. And then eventually at some point, these gases contract and form the solid planet. We're in the swirling gas phase. We haven't created this new planetary system of math education yet, but it's on the horizon. Within this generation, and that swirling gas refers to all the great people who are doing things in their communities, classrooms, and it's going to get there. It's going to get there. We're going to have some delays, but we're going to get there.
So what's something coming up for you that you're really excited about?
Well, the timing of this is wonderful because I'm going to Boston tomorrow, and I'm speaking at a memorial dinner for this person who unfortunately passed away 4 years ago. And I was invited by a good friend of mine. Would you like to come and speak? And for me, you know, she's already thanked me, but for me, I feel honored that a friend would ask me to come and speak for a friend. And this is a very intimate dinner. And, you know, I'll speak for 30, 45 minutes. But in those 30, 45 minutes, and as you probably know, you know, sometimes in 5, 7 minutes or less, how you say the words, with what intention, with what emotion, you can make connections. So anytime I can make connections with people that I've never met or people I haven't seen in a long time, I want that opportunity to make those connections. It can be social media like this, and that's perfectly fine. But those human connections, those, you know, hugs, shake hands, eye-to-eye contact. Again, our last chapter. Why can't we be friends? So everything for me is about friendship.
That's so nail on the head true. So you mentioned you did a TEDx recently.
Yes.
And I've done too as well, and it was probably one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. So tell me about your experience. How did that come up, and how did you even come up with the idea of what to say? Because that was the most stressful part for me.
That was the most stressful part for you, what to say?
Yeah, because I was like, it's timed and it's going to be live broadcast, so I can't stumble over my words. I can't mess it up, and it has to be good because it's going to be recorded forever.
So the approach I took was, and this approach I take when I talk anywhere, I don't over prepare, because the over preparation for me, even if it's perfect, that to me is kind of like, I don't want it to be perfect.
Right.
And I want to strike that balance of confidently telling your story, but allowing those hiccups and little things to naturally be there. So I was asked by sort of a colleague, friend of a friend, who recommended, like, maybe Sunil would be a great person to do this TEDx talk. And the audience was mostly students.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really wonderful. So, but I'll be honest with you, the title came to me almost instantly. It's almost like this kind of moment was waiting for me. So the title of my TEDx talks is Your Heart is Your Identity.
Oh, wow.
And it's sort of an amalgam of my experiences in terms of what happened quitting and other things. And it's going to be uploaded soon. I want you to watch it, and then you can, but
yeah,
the one thing that I said remember, this is students who are in the audience. I said, if I ask you a question, how are you today? And that's how I opened my TEDx kind of. Most of you are going to say, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay. But are you really sharing how you are feeling today? So I said, I'm going to ask you a harder question. I'm not going to ask you, how are you today? I'm going to ask you, who are you today?
Oh.
And then the whole kind of talk for the next 18 minutes so goes in terms of trying to address that. Like, who are we today? Who were we yesterday? Who are we going to be tomorrow? And how do we share that wholeheartedly with not just a select group of people, but anybody who intersects your life?
So how did you decide that that was the avenue you wanted to take for this talk?
I just think because my life, after I left teaching in 2013, I started it was going to be the first math school in Canada called the Right Angle. Mm-hmm. And we had 6,000 square feet in this beautiful historic village north of Toronto. We're going to have a storefront and a lounge area and classes in the back for after school programs and schools to come visit, to be like an exploratorium. And then 2 weeks before grand opening, there was a fire in this 150-year-old building, first fire ever. And I lost everything. It's gone.
Oh my gosh.
And there was some, because of the landlord, there wasn't proper insurance. So I, at the age of 50, lost everything. And that loss at the time, a lot of people think, oh my God, it's devastating. Mm-hmm. That is actually what allowed me to really embrace the idea of gratitude. Mm-hmm. Because very few people get to see, people talk about hard beginnings. Very few of us get to talk about hard middles. Mm-hmm. And when you have a hard middle, and then you realize that you already have enough. You've got your friends, family, you've got your health, knock on wood. So everything that's come into my life since, I'm grateful for 10,000 times more than the average person. So I got lucky with this experience that now just I get to appreciate life just far more than most people. And not everyone should have to go through an experience where you lose everything and you're worrying about how am I going to take care of my family. But I'm grateful that somehow that kind of experience intersected and gave me the gratitude that I now have.
That's powerful. And thinking about going through that and all the pain and the memory that's there, even though you brought you to where you are now, do you ever foresee yourself pursuing and something like that again?
Well, it's yeah, I've actually in the last year or so, I want to go back in the classroom. I've done a lot of writing. I have 2 books. I've written over 100 Medium articles. I write the content for the company I work for. So I love writing, but I need to be back in the classroom. So I've actually looked into project-based learning type schools in the States. There are some visa issues which might come in place, but I really do miss teaching. And teaching has changed so much even the last 5-6 years. When I left it, obviously it was not a good state in terms of where I was, but there are schools now and school communities where, and I've actually seen them where I would love to be in the school community. I'd love to be a teacher interacting with these students and seeing them every day and seeing the other teachers. And so I miss that community, right? That's the community I miss. And I know that a math recess will take me traveling and doing workshops, and that's amazing. But I think I'm looking for rootedness, and at some point it will come. So I'm definitely keeping my eye on that.
Well, Sunil, I love your honesty in discussing these things. And the one question that I always love to end on with all my guests is, if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
It's, again, we didn't talk about these questions, so I love this question that you're going to end on. I wish more people understood that math is about failure, not success. Because the history of mathematics, it gets punctuated by success and people discovering theorems and formula. But if someone was to watch over what has been happening in terms of exploring and learning about math from every culture, civilization for the last, 4 millennia, most of it is based in failure. But why did they continue to, persevere? Because math is play. So the two things which I wish I would hope people would eventually understand about math is that it is play and it is rooted in failure. And there's nothing wrong with that failure. It's what makes mathematics so wondrous and mysterious. So I think that's what I would like to help change the narrative. It's more about failure than it's about success.
That is perfect. Well, Sunil, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and chat with me. I love getting to hear and learn a little bit more of your story. The book, I have it on my shelf. I've read about half of it now. It's fantastic. So definitely recommend that to all of my viewers and listeners. But I appreciate you giving some of your time tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd. And I guess I know for sure I will see you next year in San Diego.
Yep, at the PyroCon.
At the PyroCon. So, it's I almost don't even want to give a session. I just want to go to people's sessions.
Right.
I don't. It's like fear of missing out. So it's going to be a great time. Thank you so much for this, and I'm sure we'll continue conversations on social media.
Well, and thank you to all of my listeners and viewers as well for joining me for another episode. I hope that Sunil's story has inspired you to get out there and tell your story, because like I tell you every week, every story matters. Have a great week, everyone.